an illustrated history of our lives and times. Okay, I know I've gotten a good amount of requests to bring this book back. So I have done, I think, 2 videos so far with this book. So in case you haven't seen it, it's a pretty book. 20th century. I found this at a thrift store a few years ago. So in the first video, I believe I went through 1900 through 1910. You see it's divided by decade. And the second video, I believe I left off at 1915. I had gone through 1910 through 1915 because there's a lot of information in here, and I guess I took a little long to kind of go through all of it. As you can see, there's different sections, and each year goes by year. There's things, what we knew. So it tells some of the things that were known in that year. Some sort of infamous people and events for each year. And there's famous births and deaths. And it just kind of goes through different categories. So let's see where I left off. Not sure how to. I'm not going to be able to look at every single thing. So I guess I'll just kind of pick and choose certain things that catch my eye. Okay, so here we are moving into 1916. So I guess I should bring the camera just a bit closer so that you can see it as well. I think it will be really interesting when we get into the years that are closer to us and the time we live in. Like the 80s will be pretty cool, I think. Alright, so here we have 1916. Let's see, there's some quotes at the top. This is a French lieutenant writing in his diary, May 23rd, 1916. He says, "Humanity must be mad to do what it is doing." This is all about the war's bloodiest battles. Okay, I don't know if I want to start off with war, but that's what was going on at the time. Here we have ideas. Dewey's teaching, Democracy in Education, philosopher John Dewey's seminal work of education theory took the teaching world by storm. When it was released in 1916, Dewey's rejection of old-fashioned autocratic teaching methods in favor of curricula that fostered independent thinking and problem-solving helped change the direction of American education. He's one of the most influential and controversial thinkers of his generation. He developed a theory of philosophy called instrumentalism. Okay, goes on here. An ardent believer in democracy, Dewey wrote prolifically on the need to use rational thought to improve society. just as natural science had been advanced through observation and experimentation, he argued, so must public policy be advanced. And then we have Monet's masterpiece. It's about art. In 1916, Claude Monet began work on the murals that artist André Masson later praised as the Sistine Chapel of Impressionism. Here we have one of them, Water Lilies. Is a series of monumental oil paintings of Monet's Lily Pond. Monet's lifelong struggle as an artist was to record on canvas with color first impressions of nature and light. Here in Ireland, the Easter Uprising. Let's look at some births. In 1916, Eddie Arcaro, United States jockey. Let's see, we've got Pieter Willem Botha, South African president. Walter Cronkite, U.S. newscaster. Roald Dahl, UK writer. Kirk Douglas, United States actor. Edward Heath, UK Prime Minister. Francois Mitterrand, French President. Irving Wallace, United States writer. And some deaths in 1916. William Merritt Chase, United States painter. Let's see. Victoriano Huerta, Mexican president. H. Kitchener, UK military leader. Jack London, United States writer. Grigory Rasputin, Russian mystic, died in 1916. Alan Seeger, United States poet. And let's see. Okay, let's see what's on this page here. Okay, what was new in 1916? A guide dog for the blind, which was in Germany. That was new in 1916. Move this over a bit. Hopefully you can see this okay. Windshield wipers, they were new in 1916. Lipstick in metal cartridges. The PGA, or the Professional Golfers Association. Also the Open Air Public Address System. Radio tuning device. Kids sneakers. Wow, that was a long time ago. I think I was still wearing Kids in the 80s. Lucky Strike cigarettes. Lincoln Logs. And the National Park Service, the United States Department of the Interior, all in 1916. And in the United States, let's see, the Owen Keating Law addresses child labor, with some 13% of the textile workforce under age 16. Congress in 1916 outlawed the interstate trade of goods produced in factories where children under age 14 worked, or where children between ages 14 and 16 worked more than 8 hours a day. The law was struck down in 1918 by the Supreme Court, which said Congress had exceeded its power to regulate interstate commerce. And also in the United States, 8-hour days. Hours before the railway brotherhoods, representing 400,000 employees, were to walk out on strike, Woodrow Wilson signed into law an 8-hour day for all rail workers, enforcing railroad owners to adopt labor's demand. Wilson narrowly averted a national catastrophe. Okay, here we have Villa crosses the border. Mexican revolutionary Francisco Pancho Villa led his ragtag band of guerrillas across the border to raid the United States Army garrison town of Columbus, New Mexico, in the pre-dawn hours of March 9th, 1916. It enhanced Villa's folk hero legend and secured him enough popular support to continue his campaign against Mexican leader Venustiano Carranza. His specific goals for the raid were unclear, but two possibilities suggest themselves. Number one, to revenge himself on an American arms dealer headquartered in the town who had taken his money, or to draw the United States into the Mexican Civil War, which he hoped would demonstrate the weakness of the Carranza regime. Okay, let's see. Here's a quote from Albert Einstein. This last month I have lived through the most exciting and the most exacting period of my life, and it would be true to say that it has also been the most fruitful. It's all about time, space, and matter, so this is about science. The publication in 1916 of Albert Einstein's general theory of relativity completed the modification of Newtonian physics that he'd begun 11 years earlier. To his continuum of space and time, he described his special theory of relativity. He now added matter, which he said accounted for the curvature of space and time, otherwise known as gravitation or acceleration. Okay. So, World War I, the emotional toll. In some respects, World War I was the last 19th century war. Officers still carried swords. Cavalrymen regularly rode horseback. Kings and nobles played a major role in military affairs, but technologically it was a decidedly 20th century conflict. Let's see. More here in the United States. America's wealthiest woman. Okay, that's right here. America's wealthiest woman, eccentric financier Hetty Green, or the Witch of Wall Street, died in 1916 at age 80. After inheriting a fortune as a young woman, Green exponentially expanded it, becoming the wealthiest woman in America. Frugal to a fault, she once denied her son medical treatment, costing him a leg. She lived sparingly in a Hoboken apartment and died worth a cool $100 million. She held on to her money. Okay. Let's see. German sabotage in America. An explosion of ammunition at the loading docks in Toms River Island, New Jersey, in July killed 7 and wounded 35 and wreaked $40 million worth of damage. The suspected cause was a German sabotage. This picture here. Huddled in trenches and further confined by gas masks, these German soldiers were ripe for a new disorder called shell shock. More about World War I. Not sure what you guys are most interested in hearing about. It's a lot of war and politics and things like that. Let's see, A Poet Dispatches from the Abyss by John Masefield, from Letters to His Wife, 1916. Let's just see what this is. John Masefield was 38 when he accompanied the United States Volunteer Ambulance Service to France in 1916 on a research mission for the British Army. A future English poet laureate from 1930 to his death in 1967, Masefield was already known for works like those in Saltwater Ballads, based on his boyhood naval apprenticeship. His long narrative poem, The Everlasting Mercy, had scandalized critics with its vernacular coarseness. But nothing Masefield had written or seen in his seafaring days was as shocking as the scenes he witnessed on the Western Front. His keen wartime observations were published in such books as The Old Front Line. The excerpts below are from Letters to His Wife, recording some of the appalling results of the first battle. Okay, Lenin leads the Russian Revolution. And here we have slowing down immigration. It's always like the same stuff over and over again. After 20 years of debate and 3 presidential vetoes, the United States Congress enacted a law in 1917 that required immigrants over the age of 16 to pass a literacy test. Proving they could read and write a language or dialect before entering the country. The bill's proponents were concerned mainly with excluding those who, either as anarchists or as public charges, would menace United States institutions. Let's go to some music. Tango Argentino. Argentina's most famous export, the tango, got a new twist and a new wave of popularity in 1917. We moved on to 1917. When Carlos Gardel released his first recording, Mi Noche Triste. The tango song, with its passionate vocals, accordion, and violins swirling over a haughtily deliberate beat, was on the road to worldwide popularity. Statue stands in the cemetery where he is buried. That reminds me, I was just watching Dancing with the Stars last night. I love that's my favorite dance that they do, I think. The Argentine tango. Let's see, when you hear that Dixieland Jazz Band play, Jazz Goes on Record, the first jazz recording ever, the Darktown Strutters Ball by the original Dixieland Jazz Band was cut in New York City, 1917. They were from New Orleans, where jazz itself, which was thought of as a newborn hybrid of such African American and European forms as ragtime, blues, marches, and opera. Let's see, what is this? I don't know what that is. So, 1917. Is that a urinal? That's weird. Okay, 1917. Births Anthony Burgess, UK novelist. Indira Gandhi, Indian Prime Minister. Dizzy Gillespie, United States musician. Lena Horne, United States singer. John F. Kennedy, United States president. Let's see. Ferdinand Marcos, Filipino president. Robert Mitchum, United States actor. Let's see, some deaths in 1917. Mother Cabrini, Italian, United States, Roman Catholic nun. Buffalo Bill Cody, United States showman. And Ferdinand von Zeppelin, German aeronautical designer. Let's see. What is this here? Something about art. Composition in black and white. What is that? Piet Mondrian's composition in black and white from 1917. De Stijl, the art movement that he led, was the forerunner of Bauhaus and international style architecture. Can't really tell what that is. So new in 1917, right here. BMW. And I never knew what that stands for. It stands for Bayerisch Motoren Work. Okay. Baseball games on Sunday. And that was the Cincinnati Reds versus New York Giants at the Polo Grounds in New York. Bobbed hair. Pulitzer Prizes, and they were awarded for biography, history, and journalism. And also the World Book Encyclopedia, all new in 1917. Let's see. Wobblies. Wobblies are disabled. This is about social reform. The war heightened political repression in almost every country, from the autocratic to the democratic. In the United States, draconian laws against sedition and hindrance of the war effort were passed in 1917. Thousands of individuals were prosecuted for preaching peace, and one important organization was virtually destroyed, the Industrial Workers of the World. It's a radical labor union. Okay. declares war, World War I. United States. Let's see. Woodrow Wilson had tried hard to keep America out of World War I. Not only was he reluctant to send his countrymen to die in a war whose moral basis was unclear, but peace was better business. While the European powers destroyed one another, the United States grew rich off exports and international banking, but by early 1917, after making repeated efforts to bring the warring countries to the bargaining table, Wilson felt he had no other choice. Wireless in a box. David Sarnoff, familiar to American newspaper readers as the wireless operator who accidentally picked up the message that the Titanic was sinking in 1917, suggested to the American Marconi Company that it sell a simple radio music box that, he predicted, would eventually become a fixture in every household. Let's see. So much going on about war here, all about World War I. Over here, we have fresh from the freezer. You see this little image of bird's eye wax beans. Clarence Birdseye returned to his native New York in 1917 from several years of fur trading in Labrador, determined to perfect the methods of freezing fresh foods he had witnessed among the Eskimos. He discovered that rapid freezing, which the Eskimos practiced in their sub-zero temperature environment, sealed in food's freshness much more effectively than slow freezing, which took up to 18 hours. With the latter method, ice crystals would form and break down the cell walls, destroying the tissues and fibers of the food and robbing it of freshness. By freezing the food in a mist of brine at negative 57 degrees, Birdseye found that the taste and texture could be preserved for months. He spent $7 for a fan, ice, and salt to test his method. Later, a friend gave Birdseye a corner in his ice house to continue his experiments. Alright, so then in 1924 it says he and 3 partners formed General Seafoods Company in Massachusetts to quick freeze and market fish fillets, giving birth to a multi-billion-dollar industry that revolutionized the way food is marketed and how the world eats. In 1929, the Postum Company, later General Foods, paid Birdseye $22 million for his company and the rights to use the patented Birdseye process. Okay. Then here we have a song for the Yankee Soldiers, Over There, by George Cohen. So if you know that song, I think I know that song. I used to know an old man that used to sing that, over there, over there. I think that's what that is. On the morning of April 6th, 1917, banner headlines proclaimed America's declaration of war on Germany. Actor, musical producer, and popular songwriter George M. Cohan was at his home in Great Neck, New York, getting ready to go to work. I read those war headlines, he later recalled, and I got to thinking and humming to myself. And for a minute, I thought I was going to dance. I was all finished with the chorus and the verse by the time I got to town, and I also had a title. The song, Over There, was a major success and became inextricably tied to the memory of World War I. That's pretty funny. Song and dance man George Cohan was the original Yankee Doodle Boy on Broadway in Little Johnny Jones in 1904. Okay. Let's see over here. Oh, it's just all about the war. Everything's going to be about the war over here. Technology. Tractors. This is 1918 we moved into. Tractors revolutionized farming. One machine helped win World War I without ever seeing combat. By March 1918, only a year after its invention, the world's first mass-produced tractor was being turned out at a rate of 80 per day. Henry Ford's lightweight, cheap Fordson allowed American farmers to meet soaring wartime demand as drought horses and manpower were shipped off to the fight. Did I say that right? I don't know. Just 3 years earlier, tractors had been so expensive and cumbersome that less than 1% of United States farms had used them. The tractor revolution came to Europe, outside of the Soviet Union, only after World War II, and was controlled by government policies. But in America, it began with the first Fordson and continued to accelerate through the 1920s. At first, the changes all seemed good. Land once reserved for feed could now grow crops. For the first time in history, crop surpluses became the norm. It says, but with surpluses came low crop prices. Farmers couldn't cut back. They needed to produce as much as possible to pay off loans for equipment. As they expanded and specialized, they grew dependent on costly chemical fertilizers and pesticides. More and more family farms went bankrupt. As banks foreclosed on them, corporate agribusiness moved in. During the Depression, the federal government began granting subsidies to farmers, but the biggest beneficiaries were large landowners. Meanwhile, cities continued to swell with displaced farmers and farmhands rendered obsolete by mechanization. It says in 1910, 32.5% of American workers were engaged in agriculture. By 1920, the figure was down to 25.6%, and by 1990, it had shrunk to a minuscule 2.4%. Okay, let's see. Romanovs executed, Soviet Union. The fledgling regime in Russia had planned a grandiose public trial for the deposed Tsar Leon Trotsky, darling of the revolutionary intelligentsia, was to prosecute. But in the summer of 1918, civil war forced the new leaders to make a rash decision. As the anti-Bolshevik White Army neared Ekaterinburg, the Ural mountain city where Tsar Nicholas II and his family were being detained, the Soviet government authorized their immediate execution. Okay, births in 1918. Let's see, Leonard Bernstein, United States composer and conductor. Richard Feynman, United States physicist. Ella Fitzgerald, United States singer. Billy Graham, United States evangelist. Nelson Mandela, South African president. Let's see, Anwar al-Sadat, Egyptian president. Trying to find some names I might. Ted Williams, United States baseball player. Mike Wallace, United States broadcast journalist. And then some deaths in 1918. Henry Adams, United States historian. Claude Debussy, French composer. Nicholas II, Russian Tsar. Wilfred Owen, UK poet. Edmond Rostand, French playwright. Still in 19... Sorry for all these noises here. 1918. Let's see, new in 1918. It's over here. The Airmail Service, the United Lutheran Church, the three-color traffic light in New York City, Daylight Savings Time started in 1918, Stars and Stripes magazine, granulated laundry soap, and that was Rinso from the Lever Brothers. Oh, the Raggedy Ann doll. Ripley's Believe It or Not, the Pop-Up Toaster, Kotex sanitary napkins, and suffrage for women over 30 and all men over 21 in Britain. Let's see, in the United States, let's see, right here, a modern Copernicus. Says, while working at California's Mount Wilson Observatory in 1918, astronomer Harlow Shapley made the discovery that earned him the nickname a modern Copernicus. By measuring the distances between globular clusters, closely aligned groups of up to 1 million stars, Shapley noticed that the majority of known clusters formed a spherical arrangement around the constellation Sagittarius. Studying this special pattern, Shapley deduced that the Sun is not at the center of our galaxy. The Milky Way, rather, is located some 50,000 light-years from the center. His investigations into the size and shape of the Milky Way provided the first realistic measurement of our galaxy. And let's see. see here the flu pandemic here. A mysterious, exceedingly virulent strain of influenza appeared without warning in spring 1918 and swept the globe in 3 terrible waves over the next year. Then, just as suddenly, it vanished. The war was instrumental in the spread of the disease, which was known as the Spanish flu, for the rapacity of its attack in Spain. From 3 distant military ports, Freetown, Sierra Leone, Brest, France, and Boston, Massachusetts, the flu radiated in all directions, communicated by sailors and soldiers to the civilian population. Before long, 6 continents were infected, and the number of sick troops hampered the war effort. In the United States, San Francisco passed ordinances mandating the wearing of surgical masks, and Chicago movie theaters, in cooperation with the Department of Health, refused to admit coughing patrons. Despite those and similar efforts elsewhere, it is estimated that half the world's population was touched by the pandemic of 1918. And that was influenza A. Not sure if you could see this chart here. Estimated influenza mortalities, deaths in millions. So it goes from 0 up to 16. And the lowest we had here is South America. This one here is North America. This large one is Asia. Let's see. Let's see, we're still in 1918 here. American troops enter the war. Here we have the aftermath of the war. Surrealism's composer. Let's see here. Picasso's drawing of his friend and colleague Eric Satie. This one here. The Pride Before the Fall. From the Magnificent Ambersons by Booth Tarkington, 1918. Novelist. This picture here, like most of Tarkington's novels, The Magnificent Ambersons is set in his home state of Indiana. In Orson Welles' ill-fated 1942 movie version, the character of George Amberson Minifer was played by Tim Holtz, right here, and Lucy Morgan. The woman George meets for the first time in the excerpt here was played by Anne Baxter. So I guess it gives a little excerpt from the book, which I do not know. And now we're into 1919. Okay. This here, the Palmer raids and other crackdowns sent American Bolsheviks running for cover. Anarchy. I don't know what this is here. Let's see. New in 1919. The Pogo Stick. Grand Canyon, Zion, and Lafayette, later Acadia, National Parks. A gasoline tax, which was imposed in Oregon. The American Legion. non-stop airborne crossing of the Atlantic. And it went from Newfoundland to Ireland. Okay, and then we have greyhound racing with mechanical rabbits, commercial airline service, dial telephones, Bentley and Citroen cars, pulp magazines. In the United States, baseball scandal. Amid a swirl of rumors, the favored Chicago White Sox lost the 1919 World Series to the Cincinnati Reds. An investigation of the intrusion of professional gambling into baseball resulted in the indictment of 8 Chicago players the following year. The players, dubbed the Black Sox, were acquitted of throwing the series, but subsequently banned for life from the American pastime. Among those punished, shoeless Joe Jackson, whose stellar play in the series belied participation in a fix. "Say it ain't so, Joe," pleaded his fans. And let's see, red year. What is this here? The red year. In the United States, 1919 has been called the Red Year because of bloody race riots and a Red Scare that led to the deportation of thousands of alleged subversives. Despite severe discrimination in the armed forces, black soldiers had fought heroically in World War I, and black labor had been essential to the war effort. But in the post-war recession, competition for jobs and housing heightened racial tension. Sensationalist newspapers printed lurid stories depicting blacks as rapists and bandits. Black homes in white neighborhoods were burned, and lynchings went from 38 in 1917 to 83 in 1919. The riots began in April, erupting in 25 cities. In Chicago, whites stoned black youths swimming on the wrong side of a segregated beach, drowning one. Soon, white mobs were assaulting blacks around the city. In Washington, D.C., following the alleged rape of a white woman in July, police announced they would search every black man found on the streets after dark. White soldiers took this as a license to shoot at blacks. Police invaded homes without warrants. But there was a new aspect to these disturbances. Blacks fought and shot back. Across the country, dozens from both races were killed before troops restored order. Black leaders warned of a race war. White politicians cried Bolshevism. Lots of stuff going on with Russia. Let's see. Triple Crown Chestnut Colt Sir Barton in 1919 pulled off an unheard-of sweep, winning horse racing's Triple Crown, the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont Stakes. This first of the great American thoroughbreds remained the lone Triple Crown winner until 1913. Sir Barton. Okay. What do we have over here? More massacres. It's a lot to read. Long live the Third Communist International. Sorry, lots of sort of complicated stuff. Saving for a dry day. This is an advertisement from the New York Times, May 4th, 1919. Uncle Sam will enforce prohibition. In 1919, Congress ratified the 18th Amendment, prohibiting the manufacture, sale, or transportation of intoxicating liquors. The new law had wide public endorsement. Sobriety had been touted during the war as essential to victory. Moreover, drunkenness was considered to be the root cause of violence, poverty, and the breakdown of the family. By the time Prohibition went into effect, 33 states governing 63% of the United States population had already banned alcohol. Prohibition worked, sort of. While the country was hardly dry, bootleggers and speakeasies abounded. Alcohol consumption did decline. Pre-amendment levels of consumption were not reached again until 1975. But Prohibition also has been blamed for a variety of social ills. The rise of organized crime, government corruption, and widespread contempt for the law. Before Prohibition went into effect in January 1920, liquor store advertisements, like the one below from the New York Times, urged people to stock up while supplies lasted. Buy now. So it says Uncle Sam will enforce Prohibition. Buy now. This is the time to acquire your wines and liquors. Prices are advancing daily and will continue to advance whether Prohibition becomes effective July 1st, 1919 or January 20th, 1920. No wines or liquors may now be manufactured or imported, and existing stocks of good merchandise are almost extinct. Even if the ban on manufacture were lifted, it would require years to mature the new product. And then they have some specials this week. Imperial Gin, $24.50 per case, $2.15 per bottle. We have Dove Gin for $27 a case. Gordon Gin, $29. Cocktail Rum, the H.H. Dove brand, $32. Bacardi Rum, $37. Alash Kummel, I don't know if I'm saying that right, $30. Old Bridgeport Whiskey, $36 a case. 6 years old, bottled in bond. Green Creme de Menthe, $34 a case. Special inducements given to those buying ports, sherries, clarets, I don't know how you say that, Rhine and Moselle wines in quantity. Okay. Here we have 1920. So I guess I should stop there. I was starting to go by every 5 years. I'm not sure if I skipped over 1915. I don't know where I left off last time. Did I do 10 through 14? think I did 19. I think I looked at 1915 last time, maybe because I have some things circled. So I guess I'll stop at 1919, and then next time we can have a look at the next decade. So that makes sense, 1920 through 1929. And then eventually we will get up to yes, it goes all the way through the 90s. So maybe one day we'll get through the whole thing. Alright, well I hope that was enjoyable. I know that many of you were waiting for some more of this book, and maybe some of you have not seen the other 2 episodes of going through this book, so if you'd like to go back and watch, and maybe you'll look forward to the next decade. We get into the 1920s. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next